22-06. We will be doing this kind of in a hybrid meeting forum due to the current surge with the pandemic and the spirit of safety, correcting everyone's health. All right, so can I get a motion for the adoption of the agenda?
Make a motion to adopt.
Second?
I second the motion.
Okay, all those, any discussion? Okay, all those in favor of adoption of the agenda as presented, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, so we'll go forward with the agenda as presented. Do we have any public comment on closed session?
No public comment.
Okay, so no public comment on closed session at this time. And at this time, we will adjourn to closed session to try to reconvene as close to 6:30 as possible. So we'll see everyone back after closed session. Thank you. We adjourned from closed session at 6:46. We're reconvening in public session at 6:48. Just to report, there were no actions taken during closed session. Okay, so we'll now have the official opening. If you could stand, we'll recite the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay, go ahead and stand, face the flag. Begin. I pledge allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I got confused. I'm listening to her. All right. So minutes, can I get a motion to adopt the minutes of last month's meeting in December 14th and of the special board meeting on January 4th?
I'll make a motion.
Okay, I have a motion to adopt both meeting minutes. Can I get a second?
I can second.
Okay, Krista seconds. Any discussion and comments regarding the minutes as presented?
Dr. Ramirez, can you confirm that the edits and suggestions that I recommended were revised?
Yes, and we will certainly circle back and double check, but we just confirmed with Brianna.
Okay. So all those in favor of accepting the minutes for December 14th and January 4th, 2022, with the corrections pointed out by Trustee Dryden, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Minutes are approved 5-0. Do we have any comments from the public to address the board in open session? Okay, so no comment cards by the public. So now we'll move on to the superintendent's report. So I'll turn the floor over to Dr. Ramirez to give us the superintendent's report.
Thank you, Board President Dr. Canby, trustees, public. As Ms. Torres brings up the presentation, I'll just try to be as efficient with my time as possible. Really, the focal point of the first part of our conversation is really around health and wellness. As the board is well aware and the community is well aware, we've experienced a surge coming really from the winter holidays through into this new calendar year upon our return. This has led to a significant impact to absences and attendance. Attendance really has manifested in absences. Over the last 2 weeks, we have averaged over a 20% absentee rate for our students in particular since the return to school. In order to really weather that, we have focused on providing independent study options for those families that have been in need, and with a primary focus of remaining open to in-person. Now, it's at this point that I would just offer up my appreciation for the community at large, but very specifically for staff, our classified staff and our certificated staff. Everybody here has just been incredibly flexible incredibly helpful toward one another and has just found a way to continue to weather what we're currently experiencing. So my appreciation to everybody really for banding together. I just wanted to make a few points. First, guidance from CDPH and VCPH. We have an updated decision tree that's very critical for us to help inform our decisions. We also have regular updates from Ventura County Public Health around frequently asked questions. As those guidelines change, there has been a commitment and a partnership with Ventura County Public Health toward our county schools to ensure that we are informed of where that guidance is on a consistent basis. And of course, with that, we continue to have a liaison with whom we communicate around individual cases or individual matters having to do with us as a school district. We have tried to maintain a regular stream of communication with our families and our community, communicating once, two, oftentimes three times a week, whole school, as well as updates to individual cohorts or classrooms, as well as we find out information about that group of students perhaps being impacted or any exposure that may happen in the classroom. Lastly, around partnerships, our partnerships have been longstanding, but Ventura County Office of Ed, along with Ventura County Public Health, has been really incredible in providing us information, support. Most recently, they provided us by way of county office, but from the state, with antigen test kits, and those were distributed last week throughout the week. We also have now secured N95 masks, so those will be distributed to students beginning tomorrow. Now, those N95 masks are not the best fit for every age group, so we will try to be very thoughtful with how we allocate those. Also important to note with that is that the question came up in our community gathering last week, are those mandatory? They are not mandatory, face coverings are, but we know that they can be very effective in their own right. So I just wanted to make that point. In terms of mitigation strategies, we have a number that, I don't want to focus just on the last 2 weeks. The fact is we have been putting them in place dating back to last year, but certainly dating back to the start of the year. We messaged those in our family resource guide that's linked on our website as well. And we've been focusing on face coverings as being an important mitigation strategy. Our ongoing focus on cleaning and using appropriate disinfectants, as well as our meal services. Our cafeteria, we use outdoor spaces. We have all students facing in one direction, all with an eye toward trying to minimize the risk that students run while on campus. Our volunteers, for the moment, continue to be on pause. We just want to minimize the amount of involvement that we have with our students. It's challenging enough just to be able to make sense of the comings and goings of our students. So we're looking to have that continue through the end of next week at minimum. Our music program has been moved outdoors through at least this week. That's likely to continue. That happened almost immediately upon our return. And that's really for the upper grades, 5th, 4th, and up, including our middle school band program. Lastly, on this front, our extracurriculars and athletics programming in particular has been postponed. Basketball season is a winter sport, and that has been put on pause through our Camarillo Independent Sports League. So we've been in communication there as well. Turning our attention to our dashboard, our dashboard has been with us in an effort to be transparent with the community since October. We have tried to, in the months since October, November, December, provide at least weekly updates. Those updates are becoming more regular, as certainly our cases have come up. Now, one important thing to note is that the majority of the cases that are reported on that dashboard, and that's why we made this note, happen to have come to us coming from the break. Still now, not to say that we haven't had cases that we can pretty much attribute to the school, but those have been much smaller in number. Still, we encounter what most other school districts and schools encounter, which is community spread coming into and impacting our schools. So I just wanted to make that point. Regardless, the challenges continue to be the same, and we continue to do our best to weather them and to communicate with our families along the way. There are, of course, a number of topics and factors that go beyond the pandemic. So I'll try to bring the board and the public up to speed on those as well. Very proud of the fact that we have launched paper. I believe that it will be a good source of support to many of our students. They're still learning their way and they're still making sense of it. But I've been monitoring usage just over the last several days. So far, so good, particularly in grades 7 and 8. I think we still got a ways to go with a couple of other grade levels as they start to come into the use and how it can most productively support students in their learning. But we've experienced already some good feedback from students and even from our staff. In terms of learning engagement more broadly, the work of a design team and a framework for the future will continue this coming week. We had to put a pause on that in December and just kind of regroup, but we're hoping to just continue to do that good work. We're looking at a design team meeting coming up on Tuesday, the 27th. And in professional learning, we've tried to be more balanced with our professional learning focus. And right now we're trying to provide our staff as much time back because their work routines have been severely interrupted and disrupted with large numbers of students being out of class and in and out of class over the last several weeks. So, we continue to just try to keep our attention on professional learning, but for the time being, more importantly, this surge that we're all encountering. Kind of looking ahead, our numbers coming from the break, I'll just skip ahead to the independent study slide. We did experience a larger number of requests for long-term independent study. That's 15 days or more. So our numbers were very much getting to a lower number as students and families were interested in coming back to us come January. But needless to say, with this COVID surge, we had parents who took deep stock of that and reached out to us about that possibility. So wherever we could, we made those accommodations. So our current roster is up to 20 students, and that's going to be for grades K through 7. There are a number of other families that are in short-term independent study, either because of positive COVID cases or quarantine primarily, and those are for 15 days or less. And that does have with it a lesser instructional support. Turning our attention to attendance, our attendance has been, all things considered, holding very steady. Now, to be clear, this is through December, so this does not factor in what we're encountering now. The other thing to note with attendance is that it also factors in students on short-term independent study. And so I want to be clear with the board and the public that these numbers are reflective of what we can attribute as attendance, not necessarily students in seats on a daily basis. And this is from the start of the year on through, knowing that we needed to be flexible with our families as they either had health conditions or health situations arise due largely to the pandemic. Moving along to upcoming events, here's not an exhaustive list, but just rather a representative list. I indicated the community gathering because that was a very well-attended event. I know Trustee Dryden was on that call. Thank you very much for making that time. We had well over 80 participants, which was very important. Some very important questions were asked, and that led us to some follow-up as well. So we'll be pushing out messages also trying to address some of those questions that arose at that time. So I just noted it there. Beyond that, we have our parent information night for CME. We're still looking to make that happen for our kids in 7th and 8th grade. And for the future, as we talk about enrollment for 2022-23, we've got a middle school family night. And that's our target audience there is our 5th grade students and families. We want to reach out to them proactively and let them know, even if some of them already do, what middle school looks like, what we offer as a small campus, and really highlighting the strengths that we bring, so that as parents and families make their decisions about what middle school will look like for them, we continue to be in consideration, right? So that they can continue with their journey with us. And we will also, on the 24th, have a TKK family night, and that's for our incoming and new Mesa Tigers, okay? All right, so I'd like to get us over, before we move into Mesa Moments, maybe we can pause there. I'm trying to just be very efficient with our time. Dr. Camby.
When we talk about the TKK night, how many, because we've opened up to the transfers and district of choice. So how many, what's our numbers look like on that? What's your preliminary numbers so far?
We're still building. It's still early in the process. We've started to take in, I don't have an exact count for you. I can certainly circle back with you. But we've gotten we have a spreadsheet going. I just don't happen to have it up front in the moment, but I will certainly get that information. Right now, what I can tell you is we've received a lot of calls and a lot of attention to this. And we did share it with our community in our community gathering last week, that we're counting on our families to be that strong voice of advocacy for us. So I don't have a figure for you at the moment.
As of last week, it was almost double digits, or at least a week ago, I think.
Yes, and it's still early right now. And as you can imagine, due to what we're encountering here with our surge, I think attention has been elsewhere for the time being, but that's why we're looking to be more intentional with our outreach to families. And so you'll start to see that make its way over the coming days and weeks ahead.
I have a question with regards to the surge. Are all classes open and in person at this moment, or have we been forced to go to distance learning in any of the classrooms?
That's a great question. At this point, there is one class that we unfortunately did have to place on independent study distance learning. They are slated to come back tomorrow. That was very unfortunate, but it had to do with conditions and us trying to prioritize health. But all other classes are still open and in person.
And also with regards to the fact that we're no longer a district of choice, have we received a number of calls? I guess that's what Board Member Dryden was saying, is that we're in the double of digits of people that have called to inquire to have their children come to Mesa. Is that correct?
Yeah, I don't have an exact number for you. I will certainly circle back with that. I know that we have already accepted, I want to say it's been 6 or 7 inter-district transfers already for TKK. And here's the other thing that we haven't fully messaged, and that is that an expansion of TK. TK will now stretch from December 2nd out to February 2nd. And that's based on some recent legislation. So that could also be very promising for us as a school district to essentially buy back another 2 months worth of eligibility for students, many of them siblings whose families may be interested in joining us for transitional kinder.
Okay, if no other questions, I'll go on, let Dr. Ramirez go with his Mesa Moments recipients.
Okay, so Mesa Moments, this is a tradition that has started years ago and that we are looking to continue to find a way to make relevant and important to our community, celebrating those who within our community who just stepped up in a number of ways. So we have some names here that are going to be very important in recipients, and we've got as we have in the past some plaques to offer. So I will start with, just in that order, I will start with Mrs. Erica Magdaleno. Mrs. Magdaleno, as you all well know, served in the capacity of executive assistant up until this past year. However, she has continued to support us over the last several months. And as we all know, she was a parent here, an executive assistant in that role for 11 years. And, she, as she was exiting her time with Mesa, she continued to commit to helping me and us in whatever way possible. I think, we're tremendously fortunate to have Ms. Torres come on board. Already she's hit the ground running, mostly out of necessity, but Erica behind the scenes has been a tremendous source of support. So I just want to really commend her and thank her for that. And we will make sure that she receives this small token of our appreciation. In addition to that, in our classified space, in our classified workforce, Mrs. Leticia Cousineau. For those of you who don't know about Ms. Cousineau, she has a hybrid role for us, but that doesn't do her justice. She's a health tech and a family liaison, and I can tell you, just in this last quarter alone, she has been instrumental in helping us with getting us up to speed on parent volunteers and making sure that we are in compliance there, making sure that contact tracing has happened with our students, making sure that vaccinations for employees have been up to speed. But here's the other thing. She was really running point on the Mesa Cares campaign, reaching out to families. She was here on Saturday distributing. She was there every single step of the way in planning. And we just can't thank her enough for her contributions and for being just such an amazing just contributor overall to Mesa. Incredible effort. And so we're very fortunate to have her and want to just extend our appreciation there as well. And lastly, Mr. Poi Tofiga. So Mr. Tofiga is a parent here at Mesa. He actually happens to be a fellow Channel Islands Raider. I didn't know that until I met him in person this last month. He actually helped us out tremendously. We had a staff luncheon this last December. Seems like forever ago, but Mr. Tofiga was there every step of the way, and it wound up being an amazing event for our staff, an amazing luncheon. He was here super early. He was here for weeks planning with our front office and just made the most delicious meal for our entire staff. And he went above and beyond for us. And it's not the first time that he's done that. And we just couldn't thank him enough. So just another small token of our appreciation. One other individual that is not on this list, but that is important, because last year, we transitioned in leadership. And so I'd like to make sure that Mrs. Nowak is also appropriately
Aren't you
celebrated
adorable?
for her time as our president. And, these positions are not easy. Being a trustee is not easy. I call you all super volunteers, but that's, I think, not doing you justice. But then to have a role such as president, vice president, clerk, any other role is just incredible. So Mrs. Nowak, we just wanted to extend you this little token of our appreciation for being so committed to us overall, but then specifically as the board president. So as soon as we get a chance, we'll make sure to give this to you, but just wanted to honor you, and I'll read here what the inscription reads. In recognition of your dedication and leadership to the Mesa Union School District Board of Trustees, 2020-2021. And we've got your gavel here. because I know you enjoy that piece there. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And thank you to all of those who just go above and beyond to make our community special,
I mean,
unique.
I think our
and
teachers need to each get one of those suckers after the last 2 years that unfortunately they've incurred, but I appreciate the gesture. I think it's very sweet. Neil, you need to get like a diamond crusted one for stepping up twice.
Well, don't steal our thunder quite yet. You know, we're still working on that one. But I just wanted to end my superintendent's report with a celebration and
Well, thank you. That's
highlighting the
very
contributions of people who are just amazing to our community. And there are so many, but thank you for everything you do. And that concludes my superintendent's report.
Ms. Nowak, did you ever use that gavel?
No, I think my voice is loud enough. I didn't really need the gavel, maybe a tap or two here and there. But no, I don't think too often.
Just to open and close the meeting.
Yeah, just
I would
open and
also, as we move on here, I would just also like to offer the board's appreciation to Leticia, Erica, and Mr. Tafuliga for their support of the Mesa School District and school. So thank you very much to everyone and to you, Ms. Nowak. All right.
Yeah.
So moving on, we have the board members' reports and communications. Have we received any correspondence to the board? Okay. Do we have any board members' reports or communications? Seeing no. Any board members' interests or concerns they wanted to express at this time? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to the consent agenda. And the consent agenda has been broken out into different actions or different kind of areas, the business financial, the educational student services section, and I think that's it here. So can I get a motion for approving the consent agenda as presented?
I motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Get a second?
A second.
Okay, we have a second from trustee Dryden. Okay, any discussion, any issues with the consent agenda? Yes, sir.
I just wanted to make a couple of quick points. One, there was a question by Mrs. Dryden relative to an increase to a purchase order, Sinclair, that they provide us with cleaning products, custodial supplies, and related services. So that increase had to do with an uptick in the use of their products and services. The other one had to do with just a clarification. The board, the agenda is asking the board only to accept the receipt of the first interim report. That would not be an approval. It's simply receiving.
Thank
Okay,
you.
so just the acceptance of it. Okay, any other comments, any other questions before we take a vote on the, or approve the consent agenda? Okay, all those in favor of accept or of approving the consent agenda as presented?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, hearing none, the consent agenda.
Wait, I had a question
adopted
about
5-0
the
or
consent
approved.
agenda. Excuse me?
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Sullivan, did you have a concern?
I did. I had a question prior to the vote, and not that it's going to influence the vote or the way that I vote. I just had, with regards to Golden Valley, I was just curious how their search was going for a new director.
It's in progress, and that position has been posted and is now open to accepting applicants.
Thank you. And I vote in favor.
Okay, thank you. So it's 5-0. Appreciate it. Sorry, sometimes I got the speaker turned off. I can't hear. I was making eye contact with you, but I didn't hear you. I didn't see you talking. Okay, so moving on, the item 11, discussion items, public hearing. So we're going to have a second public hearing regarding the California Voting Rights Act's consideration of trustee by area. And we have a presentation by the Cooperative Strategies for this evening. So I'll turn the floor over to them. And they have a couple different scenarios that are proposed so far.
Dr. Camby, we have Chris Schmidt once again with us from Cooperative Strategies. He is here to present and talk to the board and the public about what is being considered. So we'll bring up the slide deck, and there are also all the scenarios as separate links on the agenda, but embedded within the presentation. I'm sorry, we're going to be sharing screen in just a second. Okay, Mr. Schmidt? Okay, you can go ahead, Mr. Schmidt. The presentation is up.
All right, great. Thank you, Dr. Ramirez, and thank you, Board of Trustees, for having me back. I'm glad to be here tonight. And as with last time, much of this information you have seen before, but I do need to go through it quickly. But I am excited to share two new scenarios with you that you've seen in the board packet before the meeting, but excited to go over those with you tonight. Let's just start with the calendar. And you can see that here we are tonight on January 18th at the second public hearing, or we call that post-map 2. And next month we'll be back on February 15th at our third public hearing. And if the Board of Trustees continues to move forward at that time, there will be resolutions to select a trustee area map, as well as to change the election method. Once that's complete in March, this moves ahead to the County Committee on School District Organization. They'll always review these, and they will then make a decision on approving the trustee area map and the change to a new election method. And then finally, we'll send the information to the County Registrar of Voters so they can record that. Next slide, please. And you've seen this before. These first two bullets are things that we must do. Number one, we're chasing population balance. And number two, we're trying to comply with the Federal Voting Rights Act, which is we're making sure we don't divide or dilute any protected classes. The other bullets we need to do our best to try to accommodate, but they're not as important as those first two bullets. Making areas as compact and contiguous as possible, respecting communities of interest, following natural geographic areas, respecting incumbency when possible, and any other local considerations that are pointed out to us by the board or the public. Next slide. Here we're looking at total population by ethnic group, and you can see that the population of the district based on the 2020 census is 3,628. It's this total population that we use. As I mentioned, we need to balance the trustee areas, and it's that total population that we use to balance. You can see that the largest protected class in the district is the Hispanic Latino at 33%. Next slide. And this is a different view of the population. So this is the CVAP, the citizen voting age population. So this is, instead of total population, this is looking at people who are citizens and that they're of age to vote. And this is the key stat that we use to make sure we're in compliance with the California Voting Rights Act, to make sure, as I said, we're not diluting any protected classes. And if we have the opportunity to create a majority area or an area with a plurality, meaning they have the largest proportion, it may not have the majority, but they have the largest proportion, and we have the opportunity to create that, we should do that. And that's what we use the CVAP number for. Next slide, please. So this is scenario 1 you saw last time. It has a population variance of 6.1, meaning that's the percentage of population between the largest area and the smallest area. It just needs to be 10% or less. So all of these scenarios are definitely under the threshold. Also tonight in these maps, I'm going to be talking about the sequencing, which is how the sequencing of votes would get. So you have a staggered 22 elections and 24 elections. And so I'll briefly explain how that goes with each of the scenarios as we walk through them. But just to review this scenario, we have trustee area 1 in yellow on the west side, kind of just south west of 118. And we have the trustee area 2 in green, also southwest of 118 and encompassing the Ventura Youth Correctional Facility, which, as we learned before, we do need to count that population as part of the population for the trustee area that it's inside of. And then we have this area on the south central side where the majority of the population is. And this is, each of the scenarios breaks this up sort of in different ways, trying to follow natural boundaries, major roads, but it is a challenge to break these up. Again, number one, we have to just have a population balance. So based on how we've broken out some of the other trustee areas, it kind of determines how we balance that main population area. So this has trustee area 3 in peach, trustee area 4 in blue, and trustee area 5 in the northern section, mostly above the 118, but it also does come down and gain some population there along just north of Center School Road. They're kind of in the center of the map. So for this election sequencing, there's only one option. You can see, let's take a look at the trustee areas that make the most sense. So you have trustee area 3. There's one trustee in that area. Their election is in 2022, so that election will happen in 2022. Then you have only one trustee in trustee area 4, and they're set to be elected in 24. So trustee area 4 will fall in 2024. And then you have trustee areas 1 and 2, which are vacant. And so they would have trustee area elections. And then trustee area 5, in this scenario, there's 2 trustees they serve out their term through 22. And then the trustee in 24 would continue to serve their term. And so that would be the only sequencing option for this map. Next slide, please. So this is the breakout of the total population and the CVAP. You can see that trustee area 1, in that third row, it creates a Hispanic majority with 67.1%. And as I said, part of the California Voting Rights Act, it sort of makes the declaration that if you are able to create an area with a majority with a protected class, then we should go ahead and try to do that. So each of these scenarios accomplishes that goal. And again, you can see that the balance we're trying to chase is that in the center on the top, there's 726, and the variance on the upper right for this scenario, for the scenario 6.1. And looking at scenario 2, the only change here is that the green of trustee area 2 kind of moves north above the 118 and picks up some population in there. And then trustee area 5 in the center there moves south and kind of moves into that area around Fairway Drive. And it needs to do that to pick up population. And trustee area 4 becomes more compact. and it follows the line, that vertical line as Center School Road kind of turns and heads north there. For this scenario, you can see, let's take a look at the constants. 3 and 5 for 22 and 4 for 2024. So trustee area 3 only has one trustee. Their election is in 22, so that election will be held, and a trustee will be elected for that trustee area. Trustee area 5 has 2 trustees that they will finish out their terms, and then trustee area 5 will naturally elect a new trustee. And then trustee area 4, the only trustee, there's 2 trustees in that area, and they will continue to serve out their term, and then a new trustee will be elected. The only difference here is which area, which of the 2 vacant areas goes in 22 or 24. Part of the election code says that the final sequence of elections will give special consideration to the California Voting Rights Act. So while it's a decision of the board in consultation with the attorney, typically the area that represents a protected class that's gaining a new area would go first. So that's what option A would include, trustee area 1 in yellow as going first in 22 rather than going in 24. Next slide, please. This just shows that we're also, this scenario maintains the Hispanic Latino majority, and that the variance is 6.1. And next slide, please. So now we have a variance of 4.5. So this is getting a little closer here. The only change in this map from the last one is that you can see in the center there that trustee area 5 moved south and gained population by moving in closer to what's marked here as the Las Posas Country Club. And then the blue area, trustee 4, which used to have that, now extends up the eastern side of the district. And so it's just an option to kind of make trustee area 4 kind of sit on the eastern side, trustee area 5 in the center, and so forth, the rest being the same as the last scenario. This election sequencing is exactly the same as the previous. Next slide. Again, the detail here, and there is a little bit of change. Basically, the population variances in the second row, those just all become a little closer to hovering around 0 with less plus or minus, making this a lower variance scenario. Next slide, please. Okay, so here we're looking at some new information, and there was some input provided, and we really worked on seeing how we could make that, how we could implement those suggestions and also maintain population balance. And so a drawing was provided to us, and then it was described in the previous public meeting. And when we kind of copied it exactly, it didn't work. It threw the population balance way off. I think it put trustee area 2 at like plus 32% variance, which it's not possible to kind of recover from that that imbalance. But it did help. In the previous scenarios, we have multiple trustee areas with multiple trustees, and so this does help. One of those bullets we looked at early in the presentation, which is showing a preference for incumbency when possible. And so this kind of extends trustee area 2 up north. So it encompasses the Satakoy Club area, if I'm pronouncing that right. And it results in only having one trustee area with 2 current trustees in it, rather than having multiple kind of areas with multiple trustees. So, and as we made that adjustment to trustee area 2, kind of extending up north there, and we're maintaining trustee area 1 in yellow. So it kind of fills in that area across 118, but that doesn't at all dilute the Hispanic Latino population voting power there. There's not much population in that area north of 118, but it does just kind of round out that shape, making it look a little nicer and kind of following lines that make sense there. But then we had to adjust 3, 4, and 5 so that they get population from that main area of with those neighborhoods in the south. And so area 3 changed shape a little bit. As you can kind of see that in the northern part of it, in those neighborhoods there. Trustee area 4 shifted, and now it kind of fills in that area south where the school is, and south of 118. And then trustee area 5 comes down south and gets population from the eastern part of those neighborhoods there near Center School Road. And so the sequencing for this option is option A. I'm going to look first at trustee area 3. So trustee area 3 naturally has a term, an election in 22. And then trustee area 2 and has a natural election coming up in 22. And then trustee area 1 would be filling the vacancy for that newly created trustee area representing that protected class. And then moving on to 2024, you have trustee area 4 with a natural election occurring in 2024. And then you have trustee area 5 where, so in the 2022 election, that trustee area 5 is 2022 would complete the rest of their term. And then trustee area, the other trustee would serve at large through to 2024. And that we put that as option A because that's the best option in that it's the ideal option in that it gives trustee area 1 the opportunity to elect a trustee in as soon as possible. But the district does have the option to delay that. And what would happen is trustee area 5, so there'd be an election in 22, and then trustee area 5, or that other trustee, sorry, it's kind of complicated without a pointer, but the other trustee who is in trustee area 5, who's 24, would just continue to serve out their term. That is an option that is available to the board if they so choose. So then looking at trustee area or scenario 5 on the next slide, the only, or I guess we could just very briefly show on the data there that this still in row 3, this scenario still maintains the Hispanic Latino majority in area 1 and has a 6.9 variance. And then trustee area 5, the next slide, the only difference is in the bottom kind of center where there's a little shift. There's a little shift in how the area 5 in purple comes down and gets its population. It's slightly different in the neighborhoods it encompasses, but And then this sequencing option is exactly the same as trustee area 4. The sequencing can be difficult the first time you hear it, to kind of wrap your head around. Basically, you can remember that this process doesn't shorten or lengthen anybody's term. And if you just kind of remember that, some of the sequencing just kind of makes sense. It's kind of the options just kind of, you just start to kind of see the options. And then, so the final slide is just kind of showing the stats from that scenario. Again, we maintain the Hispanic Latino majority in trustee area 1, and this has a little higher variance of 9.6. All right. So now any feedback is welcome on questions or any adjustments or suggestions that we can make before our last meeting.
I have a few questions and trying to understand some certain things. In our last meeting, you talked quite a bit about how important it was to include the youth authority in your counts. And I realize that that's a matter of law, and I got that. But something that we need to take into consideration, and this is what I'm trying to understand better, is how to appropriately take into consideration that the Camarillo Youth Authority it's already been signed into law. It's going to disappear, and that entire population is going to disappear in a year. And I called the youth authority. There's approximately 200 residents there that are over the age of 18, and all of those 100% of them are going to be leaving the county and going back to their home counties, which is going to change the demographics by 200. Not only that, even though the people in the youth authority now, they're eligible to vote, but they're not eligible to run. And so I had concerns about this. And if we waited a year when the youth authority was closed, how would that alter things? I don't want to have to come back and immediately turn around and redistrict in order to keep things together. And so to me, taking a district that's got 700 people in it and reducing it by 200 is pretty significant. And that's my concerns. How do we cope with that appropriately and without having to come back and spend more money with demographics in 2 or 3 years?
Given the population, you're absolutely right. A change in 200 people would be a massive shift. And this is news to me. I wasn't aware of those plans. So
it's already on the books, and that 200 population, it's approximately 50 Caucasians and 150 Hispanics.
Yeah, so this is new information. I would kind of yield to Dr. Ramirez, but I would think that we need to regroup with the attorney and get guidance from the attorney. I don't know, how it. Your points are well made. I don't. That seems to make sense, and I'm not sure. I think we need to regroup with the attorney.
Right, it's going to get skewed in the very, very near future. It's already written in the law. The governor's already signed the law. The place is going to close. They're just waiting out time. And all of those inmates are going to return to their home counties, of which 0 reside in the county of Ventura.
Did they give any time frame, Steve? When did they say that? When's that scheduled to happen?
I think in 18 months.
Yeah, that largest shift would immediately throw off the. I mean, it's.
I was leaning towards 3 and 4. I'm sorry, 4 and 5, because those areas that you had put seem to accommodate that shift or that disappearance of that voting population. Perhaps, as I was reviewing it, but that's my biggest concern, is that as we move forward, we put something into place and almost immediately we got to turn around and it's going to be skewed. And so I don't want to have to, no offense, engage your firm a second time in 18 months in order to accommodate the disparity that's already legislated.
If we wouldn't have to, because districts are based on census data and we
No,
won't
I
have
understand
updated census data for 10 years. So it's my understanding that once we set these districts, they stand for 10 years. And then once we have revised census data, then that's when the redistricting would take place. But we can definitely verify with David Saldani, the attorney we're working with on this.
No, I believe you
question I-
wouldn't have to. You wouldn't have to. That's true. It's only once every 10 years that it's evaluated. It's more just going in eyes wide open, making the point that being aware that that's going to have that shift. But
if we can accommodate it now, and Tammy, you're absolutely correct. It's done off of census data and it's good for 10 years. But we're going to have this thing, in my opinion, radically skewed. And we know that if we can accommodate that, I think it's worth the effort to take a look at it. That's my point.
Chris, can you verify whether or not you split any of the census blocks?
oh, we absolutely did. Yes, we had to, and it was under the direction of David Soldani, your attorney.
Right.
Given, yeah.
We had done it with all of the other smalls. Just a quick question. Is there any way to, in trustee area 1, the yellow, can it loop up and back around the Sataquai Club to take in that trustee and then have the green loop back around and take the upper trustee? And then that would give us, everybody would be in their own areas. I don't know what that would do. I haven't seen a plot map for population.
Dr. Ramirez, would you mind putting the slide on trustee area 5? Or
I'm looking at number 4, I think.
oh,
is the
number
one.
4. Okay. Oh, okay. So you're saying, could you just say that again so I can look at the map while you're kind of saying that?
So the area in yellow,
Yes.
for trustee area 1, if it can loop up and go the back way around and capture the trustee that's in area 2, and then have then have the lower portion of the green loop up and take in the trustee that lives off of Center, that's up north of the 118. I think that's north.
Oh, I see
then
Center.
That would
Okay.
leave the lower one in its own trustee area. I don't know, I haven't seen a plot map for the population, so I don't know if that would work.
So it kind of leaves out the majority of that Sataquai neighborhood, but it
Right.
just kind of comes across and captures that trustee.
Correct,
And then
because
The
there's not a
group-
lot of population because that's mainly up in the mountain area.
you're saying the green area, are you saying it would cross over kind of in the center to capture that trustee area of 2022, like that's in the middle of the purple?
Yes,
Okay, let me just. Draw that here. Okay. We can definitely look at that.
and then it would put everyone in their own respective areas.
So would the yellow kind of continue up along the north there?
I guess it would be dependent upon population.
Okay, I see what you're saying. Just kind of keep going until it reaches its population. The only challenge is that as soon as trustee area 1 dips into the Satakoy Club,
You're diluting.
you're gonna dilute that compact area, which really is clearly its own kind of demographic.
Mhm.
And you're
Even if
so
you
that
just
it would be,
upper portion,
what's that?
not the entire, not taking the entire, just take a little cross section of it.
We'd want to, we could draw that and run it by Mr. Soldani.
Okay.
And his job would be to analyze just the risk.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. It's just a thought.
Yeah, I was kind of looking at that to kind of see if we could anywhere include, like I said, trustee, the trustee in the Satakoy area in one. It's just, it seems like that population would then go up to a variance that would be kind of hard to control there, just because you would have to then take some away from probably the other section there, because it's already at 715 and everybody else is around that. So I mean, you'd have to maybe even take a little bit off of the backside of it there near the Rose Avenue side to kind of decrease that population so it didn't get too high. And again,
Mhm.
without diluting it all. So that would be the big challenge with that.
But then you're also would be picking up some of the area, the northern area around center. So it would, I just haven't seen a plot map of population, so I don't know if that's viable or not.
Thank you, Tammy. I appreciate that. Good point.
Any other thoughts on adjustments?
Just one question regarding procedure with this. If there are major demographic changes, like Mr. Sullivan's talking about, is there anything that does trigger a rezoning, or you just have to wait till the next census cycle?
Yeah, it's just
So-
the next, I believe it's just the next census cycle.
So the board always has the ability to move ahead of a census cycle. Because there are districts that encounter influxes of populations or changes to their population density. And I'm talking outside of Mesa. But I think to answer the question, I would concur with both Mr. Schmidt and Mrs. Peterson, to say that it would be the census that would trigger maybe a mandated revisiting of the trustee areas.
That's true. It would trigger a mandated one. But if we have knowledge as board members ahead, that we know that the legislation is going to happen, we know that these are things are going to go there, we could come back and revisit, although it is every 10 years is when it's mandated. But if there were a significant change, let's say somebody put in a housing development, that would also necessitate us to come back and revisit the trustee areas. We shouldn't be with knowledge, knowing that things are going to get skewed pretty significantly. If we can, in my opinion, we should try to accommodate that. I don't know that we can. That's not my job, but I simply bring that information out that we should be aware of that, and so that we don't have to wait the 10, an additional 8 years to complete the census cycle. It's actually 10 years. We just barely got the census data out. And so where are we at? And if we can accommodate this without having to wait 10 years to come back and revisit.
I think those are all valid points, and we do have one more public hearing on this scheduled for next month. And at that point, we will be kind of asked to take a vote on that if we want to continue with this process, and if we do, what zones and what order. And I think we've got a couple good options there. I just, it's going to be, let's see if that thing, the way Tammy's kind of suggested, if it can kind of include trustee from the second area over into the first area, that might be a way to help ensure that we have a trustee representing every area there. I don't know. I mean, I think that's a good question for, kind of see if they can accommodate that there and see if that'll actually work for us. All right, any other questions, comments? I see Jamie.
I'm chomping at the bit. I was just wondering if we have a good idea about students residing in trustee area 1, these yellow area, either any of the scenarios, the majority of that area. Because I think that it is important that, the Sataquai Club get absorbed into like trustee area 2 or 1 if possible, because it's a neighborhood, and that's what we're trying to, Mr. Sullivan, is talking about, is these areas, the workaround on some of these things that will change is that we have to have permanent neighborhoods. And the Sataquai Club is a permanent neighborhood. So if that could anchor, area 1 or area 2, but if I'm gonna find area 1 really difficult and really challenging if we don't have any Mesa students in that area, no matter if it's 2022 election cycle. I mean, that's gonna be a real challenge, Chris, let me tell you. But even if it's 2024, it's gonna be hard, and we're gonna have to really start outreach, because that area is not one where we've seen trustees for a very long time, if ever. And so to try to put area 1 on an election cycle for 2022 is going to be a challenge, I think. Unless we have Mesa families there, and then we can start, our outreach. But I personally don't know of any in that area.
Yeah, I asked the same question, Dr. Ramirez. He's got a good answer there.
So that area is it's the Strickland area. It encompasses the Strickland area, and we have quite a number of our students who come from that population. It's pretty densely populated there. So I guess in response to your question, now your point about 2022 is certainly also, so I'm seeing those as two separate but related questions. One is about just density and how many families we have, and we do. But the other one is about 2022, which is looming. And I think from that standpoint, that begs the question, going back to what Mrs. Peterson and others have suggested, of trying to potentially annex a part of that which would allow for an incumbent to remain representative of that area.
Okay, any other questions, any other comments from anyone at this point? Or from our guest, Chris?
Chris, I have one more question, if I may, and that has to do with, you're working with CVAP, right? It was voting age population.
Yep.
Correct?
Yes, sir.
That's not, they're eligible to vote, is what my question is. This voting age population is just not that they're old enough, but they're also eligible to vote, meaning that they have citizenship status and are able to participate.
Yes, it is an estimation of that they are citizens. They're of age and they are citizens. It's an
said
estimate of that number.
It's an estimate.
Yeah,
So it's
that's the
unknown?
only. It's the standard for what the census provides for these kind of analyses. They provide a 4-year kind of rolling estimate of, like I said, the citizen voting age population. But yeah, it's an estimate provided by the census for this kind of analysis.
And are we basing our blocks that we're trying to, maintain for special groups based on the total population or the CVAP?
For the traditional minority groups, we're looking at the CVAP. So the first requirement was this: we're chasing this population balance. That we are balancing these trustee areas on total population, everyone. But as we do that, we also pay attention to the citizen voting age population of various protected classes. And we watch that because we're directed that if we can create an area where they have voting power, we should. That's kind of that's the directive. And so in this situation, we saw that there is an area where they can have the population balance and have a majority of a protected class.
Okay,
And
yeah,
what
'cause
number?
I was gonna say, I noticed on both scenario, 4 and 5, based on total population, there were multiple trustee areas that had the population majority, but there's still only one that has the CVAP majority in those cases.
Yeah, it's the
So,
CVAP. Yeah.
And what's the threshold for the CVAP to say that you have a minority, a protected class with a predominance or a majority? Is
It really is
50%?
just over 50%, and they have them. If you can give them over 50%, if that's possible. But you can also, if we're able to create a plurality, that's also legally advantageous. And this is where the attorney can talk to better, but it's not a majority, but it's a plurality. It's still really good. And if you can do that, where they don't have over 50%, but they do have the highest percentage, we want to try to do that also. And in this case, we were able to get a majority. And so the plurality didn't come into play.
Okay, thank you. So if we could adjust the population a little bit and maybe, like I said, move one of the trustees into that area next there in Saticoy of that neighborhood, as long as we can keep the total population, we kept something greater than 50%, we would be within what were the goal of this process, correct?
That's a question for Mr. Soldani. How much you can reduce it and still, because we're talking about legal risk, avoiding a challenge, and so that's kind of out of my, we should get his advice on that.
Okay, we're doing this mainly, we're doing this just to ensure we have representation too. That's our main point too. We don't want to have an open seat and have to have elections and stuff like that. That's the only reason behind the thoughts of this.
Sure, of course. Oh yeah.
Well, and we definitely know that there's people in the Saticoy Club that are of minority races, right? So if we could have those two birds, that would be lovely.
Protected class.
Protected class.
Exactly.
So provide a community meeting that we had on a larger group. And so I think it would be interesting if next time, if Dr. Maris let us know if you got any community comments based on these maps. I know you did educate people that attended that meeting and showed them where these maps were on the district's website. So if there is any, feedback on that, I think we'd be interested to hear that.
Yes, as you pointed out, we did message this during the community gathering. We'll continue to push this out through Mesa Matters and through other communication as well, particularly in light of this conversation. And we have not received anything explicitly with questions pertaining to these trustee areas, but we will certainly be on the lookout for those.
Okay, thank you very much. So hearing no other comments from the board or any other questions? Okay, thank you very much. We'll go ahead and kind of close the public hearing that we have right now, and we'll move on to our other action and discussion items.
Thank you so much for your time. It was good to see you again.
Thanks, Chris. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr.
Bye-bye.
Smith.
Good night.
We'll be in touch. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so the next item on the agenda for action is the consideration of the approval of the 2020-2021 Golden Valley Charter School Report on audit of financial statements and supplementary information, including reports on compliance prepared by Feddersen and Company LLP. Can I get a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve.
A second for that?
I'll second.
Okay, thank you, Jamie. All right, I think at this point, I think this goes to Tammy to kind of give us any background information or anything there. Is Tammy, any feedback or any info on that?
I have reviewed the audit and it is considered an unmodified opinion, so there will be no restatements, which is always a good thing. And there are no findings. So we look forward to continue working with Golden Valley.
Okay, and Dr. Ramirez, any discussion?
No discussion except to say that they are Golden Valley continues to be in a good financial position with healthy reserves and positive cash flow. So as Ms. Peterson indicated, it's a good partnership.
Okay. Any other questions, any other concerns from board members? Okay, so all those in favor of the approval of the 2020-2021 Golden Valley Charter School Report on Audit of Financial Statements, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay,
So Dr. Camby, we do have 2 trustees who are looking to log back on. The vote can still carry. Yes, the vote can still carry.
okay, so motion carried, but we'll give it a minute or two because I think we had a couple trustees that got dropped off. So if everybody just stand by for a second. Krista, I see you're back. Mr. Sullivan, are you back?
I am back. My little hiccup is over.
Okay, Krista, are you back?
I am here.
Okay, so we got everybody back. So we had where did you guys drop off? Did you hear any discussion or anything from Tammy or Dr. Ramirez?
I personally did. I signed back in and then I heard the vote and I voted with my hand raised, just not in the panelist position.
Okay, and Mr. Sullivan, did you hear all of that? Did you have any questions or any further discussion?
And what was the vote on?
The vote was on the approval of the 2020-2021 Golden Valley Charter School Report and Audit of Financial Statements. And that was presented by Tammy and Dr. Ramirez as a good audit with no findings and good financial standing.
I'll vote in favor. I missed that.
Okay, I just want to make sure you understand, so just that it was the annual audit, and as Tammy said, there were no findings. It was a good audit and in good standing, correct? Is that a good summary of it? Okay, are you comfortable with that, Mr. Sullivan?
Yes, I vote in favor of that.
Okay, so we approve that 5-0. I just want to make sure, since we had some people drop off, that everybody knew what was going on. Okay, all right. So next item on the agenda is the consideration of the approval of Mesa Union School District Accountability Report Card, the SARC, for the 2020-2021 school year. Can I get a motion to approve?
I so move.
Can
I
get a
second.
I second.
Okay, all right, we got a second from Trustee Sullivan. All right, so Dr. Ramirez, any discussion for this, or anyone have any questions on this?
I just wanted to say one thing briefly, and that is that the SARC is normally a very much what you consider pro forma. It's something that just gets approved every single year. What makes this particular SARC unique is that it calls upon localized data from last spring in a way, because we didn't opt into standardized testing last year. That was a decision that I recommended to the board, and that the board was supportive of doing. That said, I know that student achievement continues to be of foremost important to all of us. And for that, I'm working on a report to bring back in February to give us a status of that baseline back in the spring, but also where we are more currently with our students in terms of our local data.
Okay. All right, any other questions, any discussion from the board?
Yes, I'm just interested, to what that will look like. So I'll wait on the edge of my seat until February. But I think it's important to note that like the state's not doing normal dashboards and academic dashboards like they have in the past. So like if you go to the website now, there is not that red to green ticker that we're used to seeing. There's some numbers presented, so it definitely shows numbers for different things, but there's no dashboard, red, green, yellow like there was before. And I mean, I don't know if there will be for this school year either. We'll see how testing goes, but I think that's something that, we want to figure out, and I'm glad Dr. Ramirez is looking at that, what our dashboard looks like and where we want to improve. So even though the state doesn't have this color-coded dashboard for us right now, I do think it's still important for us to know our dashboard and to figure out where our areas are. And I'm sure that we do have a good handle on it. So it's just, educating us as to where we kind of stand on that. So I am excited to see that in February, because that dashboard hasn't been available on a state basis for now a couple of years because of COVID.
Okay, so we'll look forward to that report in February. Thank you. All right, so all those in favor of the approval of the Mesa Union School District SARC report card for the 2020-2021 school year, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion carries 5-0. Next item is the consideration of the acceptance of the quarterly report on the Williams uniform complaints. Can I get a motion to accept the quality report or quarterly report on the Williams?
I
uniform
move that we
complaints?
accept the quarterly report on Williams uniform complaints.
Okay, can I get a second?
I will second.
Okay, trustee Dryden second. And as far as I understand, there were no reports or no complaints. Correct?
Yeah, and I do want to
Correct.
clarify that this is pertaining specifically to the Williams Act, which focuses on sufficiency of instructional materials and facilities being in good standing.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other questions, any other comments? Okay, all those in favor of the acceptance of the quarterly report on Williams uniform complaints, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, 5-0 approved. Okay, moving on now to personnel items. We have the consideration of the approval of the hiring of the following certificated staff. Rosa Brown, substitute teacher, effective January 18th, 2022. Can I get a motion for the approval of the hiring?
I move that we approve the hiring of Rosa Brown, substitute teacher, effective January 18th, 2022.
Okay, can I get a second?
I'll second the motion.
Okay, trustee Romero. Okay, any questions, any discussion? Dr. Ramirez, I know you're involved.
Just very thankful to welcome Ms. Brown on board in this capacity, formerly Ms. Vanoni. So she's got long roots in this community and is a parent with us as well.
Okay, any further discussion, any other comments? Okay, all those in favor of the hiring, approving of the hiring of Rosa Brown, substitute teacher, effective January 18th, 2022. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Okay, approved 5-0. And then the other next item or next consideration approval of the hiring of the following classified staff. Christina Finney, professional substitute, effective January 18th, 2022. Can I get a motion for approval?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay, trustee Romero, can I get a second?
I'll second.
Okay, trustee Dryden, thank you. Okay, again, Dr. Ramirez, any input?
Equally, very thankful to have Ms. Finney join us in this capacity. She interviewed a bit of time ago, but we revisited with her and she's available and we're excited to have her.
Okay, all right, all those in favor of approving the hiring of Christina Finney as a paraprofessional substitute, effective January 18, 2022. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Okay, that's approved 5-0. All right, so items for future consideration. We have the consolidated application for federal funding and the local control accountability plan. We also have the continued California Voting Act rights scenarios that we're going to go forward with. And our next meeting is scheduled for February 15th, 2022 at 6 p.m. Regular board meeting. Do we need to address whether we will continue to meet in public or have pass another resolution? We're going to look at that again. When will we look at that? Or when do we
The
have-
resolution will be reintroduced for possible possible adoption or consideration by the board at the beginning of the next meeting,
Okay, so depending
based on
on,
conditions.
okay, depending on conditions, we may have a resolution at the beginning of the meeting to make sure that we hold that kind of a hybrid meeting like this with some people in person, some people remote. Okay,
I got a question about that. If I can make a suggestion, I think, one, the resolution that we passed in January, on January 4th, is good for 30 days. And so that resolution will be expired. And so we will not have an option until we pass another resolution, that perhaps at the beginning of each of our meetings that we pass a resolution ongoing for the next month. But we're going to have a special meeting or something if we want to have a distance meeting again.
Mr. Sullivan, that was one of the questions that I asked our legal counsel. I will resend their opinion, but their opinion is consistent that the board can, at the next board meeting, move ahead even as they are considering that resolution. So I will send further guidance from legal counsel on that.
Okay. The guidance that what I just shared with you is clearly in the law, and I discuss it with a law firm that represents 100 school districts, over 100 school districts. And that, again, that's what their counsel was as well. It's got to be an ongoing resolution that's renewed every 30 days.
That is correct, but because of the unpredictability, the board does not have to pass a resolution, but must consider conditions. A resolution just happens to be the best way to capture those conditions and galvanize the decision of the board. But it can happen on the board meeting, at the beginning of the board meeting itself, is what our legal counsel has advised us.
okay. And I think Dr. Ramirez requested Mr. Sullivan just kind of revisit that with our council. And if we do need to have a special board meeting before then, if we'll have to schedule that, we'll get notice of that. But thank you for that consideration. We'll revisit that before our next board meeting and before the next one has to be renewed. Okay. Any other questions before we adjourn? Okay. Thank you, everybody. We'll adjourn at what time is it? 8:15. Thank you. See you guys next time. Bye, everyone.
Night.
Bye, good night.
Bye.